All right, so now that we've looked at all of these parameters for light mapping, it is time for us to, well, apply what we've talked about to our simple level. But before we do, I wanted to say something real quick, something I kind of caught myself on in the last video and just kind of stumbled but kept going, and because it was really too late to jump back, wanted to point out real quick where I had mentioned that if you were using the deferred lighting render path, or excuse me, the forward rendering render path, and you're only going to be using just a single light map, you're still going to see two slots there. So don't let that confuse you if you're working with Unity Standard and you're thinking I still see two slots. That's what I meant is that we're only using one. That's all. So I just wanted to say that real quick. And Lee, let me turn it over to you to clean some stuff up, maybe delete some stuff out, and get things set up to render out our real light maps.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to close this. We no longer need this scene, so I'm going to go ahead and actually force I have it. I'm just going to hit Control Save, even though I'm going to go delete it later. But what I'm going to do is go File. Well, actually, I'm not even going to do it that way. What I'm going to do is go Meshes. I just go to Scene, double click on Demo. It'll do the same thing. And that'll bring us back to our simple level as opposed to our simple level.
Gotcha.
So now we've got our simple level. Let's get some settings going to actually.
You want to just go ahead and kill out all of the.
Yeah, I can get rid of some of the old stuff. So if we can delete that material, the red material, we can get rid of the light test scene. We can get rid of that information. We don't need the light maps folder in
that was our
prefabs
backup
anymore.
one.
Yep, that was what we did just to show that around. So now everything should be clean up to the point where the only thing in here is the stuff for the simple level.
Sounds great.
All right, so what we're going to do is actually bake out some light maps for this guy. So the first thing we're going to do is get back in the light map editor again, and let's check a couple of things for this scene, because when we brought it in, let me scroll back out here. Okay, I'm just going to click on the whole level. One of the things that we haven't done yet that we mentioned in the last several videos is light mapping is all about being applied to static objects, nothing that's moving. Our whole level is static, so we need to flag it as static. By selecting the top level, everything underneath of it will be applied to when I hit static. Matter of fact,
they're all going to receive it. Exactly.
It's going to say, do you want to apply this to your children? So yes, I do. So now everything in my scene is flagged as static. So when we go to bake out our maps, we're actually going to see light maps applied to them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom back in here a little bit. We're going to go into our bake settings. I'm going to drop our quality down to low for a little bit. I'm going to actually take our final gather back down to 20. I'm going to take our skylight intensity, boost it up to probably about 0.25. I'm going to take our sky color and rotate our scene around. Basically what I want to do is I want to get a good feel for what the dominant sky color is in our scene. So, and it looks like most of it's going to be this pinkish gray. So I'll go ahead and select it. It's a little bit dark for what I want, so I'm going to bring it up a little bit and then bring the camera back down, hopefully outside of a box, so we can see what's going on. So basically I'm just going to do some low excuse me. I'm going to do some low res tests to start with to see what kind of lighting effect we're going to get. I'm also going to leave off ambient occlusion for now as well, just to speed up the render. And what I want to do is just bake out, say, these two pieces of geometry, the foreground and this back wall, just so I can get a rough idea of what the lighting's going to do.
Okay.
So it'll go a lot faster than if
the whole scene.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. So, and this is just a good habit to get into. You want a good estimate what you're getting before you decide to spend a half an hour baking out and realizing, well, those settings weren't exactly what I was looking for.
Right. Not even in the ballpark.
Yep. So, and it's worth spending a couple minutes on several bakes ahead of time just to be safe. So, we're just about done here. And tick, tick.
It's close.
It's getting there faster. So, writing out the light maps. And we can see that we've picked up some more light. It's brightened up the overall scene. Back walls look okay. Shadows are still a bit harsh, but I kind of expect that if I go in here and I dial down my shadow distance. Just type in 0. So turn off my sunlight. Now this is just what's being attributed to the light map that I've just baked out. So the intensities look about where I want them to be, because I want to bring this up a little bit lighter. I don't want our scene to be too dark. Colors, not too bad.
Okay.
So,
well, you're an artist here, and it is a simple level after all.
Yep. So that's good enough for what I'm looking for. Now what I want to do next is actually deal with what I'm going to do with shadows. So I'll come into our sun again, object, and look at the light coming from our sun. Intensity is good, bounce intensity I'm going to leave the same, but I want to get a little bit softer with our shadows. So I'm going to bump up, in this case, 64 on our shadows. And then shadow angle, I'm going to probably bring up to about 15. This is going to give me a little bit softer on the shadows. I'm going to come back into our bake.
Do you have a shadow you can get us closer to actually see something? We're not so far away.
Yeah, I'm going to bring in sun and editor, project player, switch over to deferred lighting, and I need editor, project, quality, make sure I'm still in fantastic, and bump our shadow distance back out. So right now this is all dynamic light, and I can clear the shadow map so we can see where it dumped out all of our indirect lighting. So all this is attributed to just what we're getting from our sun itself. Take our shadow distance, leave it there. Now position to about here, and let's go back to bake, low quality boost, make sure everything's about good here. I'm going to bump up a little bit higher just so I can start to see what the shadows are going to do. And then this time I'm going to actually do a full bake, but I'm going to pause the video because this is actually going to take probably about 5 or 6 minutes to bake this one out. So I shall see you when this bake is done. Alright, and we're back. Actually, the bake didn't take as long as I thought it was. It only took 3 minutes. I was figuring about 5 or 6. And I have to apologize. My voice was getting a little bit weak. I was fighting a coughing fit up until that render. So now I'm back a little bit stronger than it was before. Alright, so what we've done is we finished out the bake. As you can see through maps on here, we've actually baked out all the maps. They are kind of rough. Right now we can't see them, mostly because our shadow distance is cranked all the way out.
Well, our sun's still
and
on.
our sun is still on.
Yeah.
So right now, all the way out to 95 units, we're using the sun instead of our maps. So I can turn our sun off. Now we're using our near map, and if I bring this all the way in, we can see the effect of our far map. Let me get 0. There we go. So as you can see, it's kind of splotchy, but we do have our shadows in here. If I rotate around, we can actually see the effect of the lighting. Like I said, there's a lot of splotchiness in it, but that's to be expected because our bake was only 100 rays for this entire scene, and this entire scene is 100 meters by 100 meters. So you're talking about, you know, 1 ray for every square meter of this thing. So what we're going to do now is, I'm happy with the intensity of this, the color, and the way the shadows are pretty much laid out. So what we're going to do now is we're going to set the rest of these settings so we can get ready for the final bake. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our final gather, well actually I'll take quality, I'm going to bump it up to high. I'm actually going to take our final gather rays and I'm going to bump them up to about 1500, which is even a little bit higher than what we get by default. I'm going to take our ambient occlusion and I'm going to bump this up to about 0.4. I'm going to leave our max distance to 1, contrast to defaults, and let me check. Shadow angle is at 15, samples at 64. So these are about the settings that I want to have. I'm going to keep my resolution at 50, and these are the settings that I want to use for this scene for its final bake. So we're going to get ready to bake this out.
Yeah, but before we hit bake, we'll actually end the video just so that when we hit bake and it starts really, you know, working that old processor, then we hit stop on the video and it's got to take care of all of that stuff. It's
exactly. So what we're going to do is we'll end the video, then we'll start the bake. But when we come back, we'll show you the results from that bake.
Exactly. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up. Thanks a lot.